Communities affected by a significant increase in trucks ferrying coal between Mpumalanga and KwaZulu-Natal are up in arms. They planning to bar these trucks on the R33 in a protest they calling a life-saving exercise. Now, the protest follows the deadly truck crash that claimed the lives of 20 people, among them children, in the area of Pongola last month. To speak to us more about the impact of the protest on the movement of coal and the trucking industry as a whole, we're joined now by Siphesihle Mutwa, the General Secretary of the National Truck Drivers Foundation. Mr. Mutwa, good morning to you and thank you very much for your time. Are you aware of this impending blockade of the trucks that are transporting coal between Mpumalanga and Durban?
Good morning to you, colleague, and the listeners. Yes, we are aware of that. Most of the areas, the communities are complaining about our side tipper trucks that are transporting coal.
Okay.
We are aware of that due to that, because of that accident that happened in Pongola last month.
Yeah. And have you seen anything of the sort? Have you seen any of the blockades that could have started? Because the understanding is that today it's meant to be the start of this protest by the concerned communities.
As yet, we have not seen anything, but we are aware and we are concerned about those blockages, of which we like to urge the communities not to do blockages, because that is part of the of the economy sabotage. We know when we are aware that they are afraid, they are scared of the side tippers that are transporting coal because of the behavior of our truck drivers. But on our side, we are also pleading to our minister, to our government, to enforce, because the problem is the lack of enforcement. If the government or the minister, the transport minister, can provide enforcement, especially on these areas where these trucks are moving, I don't think there will be all these accidents and most of these protests.
If the blockade, Mr. Mutwa, does eventually start, if community members decide that they really have had enough, how is this likely to impact your business? You're already talking about economic sabotage.
At first, we as drivers, those protesters are putting drivers at risk and they are putting them in danger. What happens here, as we are transporting coal, there is a timetable and we have got a pressure from the employers to run on time. So we've got the ETAs, the arrivals at where we are offloading and where we're loading. Yeah. So that thing disturbs us and it gives us more stress as drivers, because our controllers and our employers are on top of us, and on the other side, the communities are on top of us. And in most cases, the community, when they are striking or they are protesting, they ban trucks. When they are banning trucks, most of our available things are inside the truck, our driver's licenses, our changing clothes, and all those things. So we are pleading to the community. We know, we understand their concern. If they can give us a chance, because we are still in talks, we are still negotiating with the minister to deploy more police officers on the road, so that they will be able to attend to whatever the driver or whatever offenses the drivers are committing on the road.
Yeah. Well, you touch on this important element, and that is the driver behavior. Why is it that you as truck drivers do not conduct yourselves in accordance with the rules of the road? Why, for example, do you drive in long convoys? Because that sometimes frustrates the drivers, the motor vehicle drivers, most of the time.
I do agree with that. As leaders, we do our best to talk to the drivers not to drive in convoy. But now the drivers are telling us the problem is with the controllers. Because the controllers are sending messages, threatening messages to drivers that they're going to lose their jobs if they don't make time. They talk about ETA. That ETA, it's a problem. They don't even give the drivers the time to rest. The only time that you got is the time to fill diesel and you drive. So that gives a pressure to the drivers. That is why now they are driving on convoy. Yes, we don't like that, and we are doing our best to speak to the drivers not to do that. But now because of the pressure. So that is why we say now, if we can have more enforcement, we will attend to this, and all these accidents will reduce all these accidents that are happening on the road. And the pressure from our employers, that is the reason why the drivers are behaving like this. You must remember, if you are in a truck, it's like as if you have got a blanket, you take a blanket, you dip it in a petrol tank, then you take it as wet as like that, and then you hold the blanket or you put it on your body, you go straight to the fire. So that's how the situation of the driver when the driver is inside the truck. So you cannot just behave like that, knowing very well that if the truck goes off the road, you are dead.
Yeah.
But now, because you are trying to hold on to your job, you are trying to feed your kids and all that other behind you, now you end up doing wrong things. If our employers can stop putting pressure on drivers, all these things will stop.
Well, have you had that conversation with the employers? Why is it that they put so much pressure on you? You keep referring to the ETA. I assume that stands for estimated time of arrival. If they're putting so much pressure on you, do they understand that they're going to end up losing business themselves?
The problem here, Kola, is that when we talk about the situation of the foreign drivers that are driving in South Africa, after that, those companies who have reduced those foreign nationals, they are now putting more pressure on the SA drivers because they are trying to prove that the SA drivers have got no experience or they cannot drive. That's what they are doing. The situation now, it's not like before when the foreign drivers were driving. Our employers, when the foreign nationals were driving here, our employers, they knew that those foreign drivers, they used to go in pairs. They used to go in 2, 3, 4 in one truck. So they can make ETA because if one driver is tired, another one is taking over, but the employer will only pay one driver. So they didn't have any problem because they only pay one driver. Even if it's 4 drivers who are driving the truck, they didn't have a problem. Now, when we as South Africans are driving these trucks, I only drive the truck alone. So now, if you can imagine, I'm driving 15, 16 hours a day and then no rest.
Yeah.
So there will be accidents.
You are making a lot of sense. Have you tried to talk through your structures in order to see to it that the employers change these conditions? Because what you've just explained now makes a lot of sense, that before there were no accidents. There weren't as many accidents as we are seeing on our roads now that are committed by truck drivers because there was that number of drivers in one truck, and therefore you're able to make the time that you are estimated to arrive. Why has that changed? Why did the employers change that scenario? Is it because they are refusing to pay more drivers in one truck?
Our employers, some of them, they don't want to comply with the labor laws. When they employ one driver, they put pressure on that driver, the South African driver now. They were not doing that before because the ETA, the previous drivers, they were making ETA because each truck had more than one driver. Right. The employers, they are trying to prove that we as South Africans, we cannot meet time, we are lazy, and they are giving us all those names. The reason why is because when they employ a foreign national, they do not pay all these taxes, they do not pay the bargaining council, most of the benefits they are not giving to the drivers. So they are gaining more when they're employing the foreign nationals. Now, when we say no, this thing must stop, that is where now they are putting pressure on the SA drivers. So we are still in negotiations with our ministers about this situation. So we are hoping that we will come up with something that will make sense and our employers won't behave like this. At present, the worst problem that we're having, these employers, when we engage them, when we talk to them, they just tell you straight that, hey, you cannot say anything because they've got ministers on their side. Because there are some ministers who have got trucks, and those ministers who have got trucks, they are on the same page with these employers. So that's the worst problem we are having in this country.
My goodness. I'm tempted to ask you whether you know of any minister. You're saying that there are ministers who own trucks or who are in the business of trucking. Are you able to name one?
No, I won't be able to name one in the public radio station because that will jeopardize my life.
Yes, yes.
So we have spoken to the minister several times. We had a meeting with Minister Ngesi, Minister of Transport, Minister of Home Affairs, most of them. We have told them this is the story. But when we talk about this, they only tell us no, they will investigate, they will investigate, they will investigate, just like that. So now, this is the pressure because the drivers, when they are working for each company, that employer, the one who employs them, at some times, you'll find that maybe when he is angry, when he's talking to the drivers, he even mentions that the owner of this truck is so and so. So if you got problems, you must go and speak to Minister so and so because he is the one who owns this truck. And he's going to use vulgar language when he's talking about that. So that in most of the cases, that is where we identify that, okay, the employer don't want to comply because he's got the minister behind him.
Yeah. Mr. Mutwa, you have you've really illuminated the situation that truck drivers find themselves in. Let me ask you this one final question. The accident that happened in Pongola last month, how has that changed the situation for truck drivers on the road? Do you think your lives are more at risk now because there's not only pressure from your employers, but there's pressure from communities who are saying that you're driving recklessly?
At first, I was supposed to say condolences to those families who lost their loved ones. We were deeply sad about that, and we don't like to see something like that happening. You know, before I answer, let me just give you one example. Yesterday, around 10 past 10 on the N3, there was one truck that was driving on the wrong side of the road. The N3 is going Joburg and going down Durban. The truck is going to Durban, but is driving on the Joburg side. It's driving on the fast lane of the Joburg side, coming down to Durban. You see that?
Yep.
When we try to find out from that driver, what is he doing? The driver is talking about the controller is giving pressure on him, so he wasn't even thinking, he didn't even know how he found himself on the wrong side of the road. I'm talking about the N3. So the pressure that we're getting from our controllers and the employers, it makes us, it puts our lives in jeopardy. That is why I'm saying, if the community can bear with us, we are trying our level best to talk to our employers through minister, because if minister can enforce, then we know that our employers won't be able to put pressure on us if there is enforcement. Because once there is enforcement, our employers will have to obey the rules. The problem at present is enforcement. Once we get enforcement, it will come right.
Mr. Mutwa, let me thank you very much for your time and your very candid honesty here. Siphesihle Mutwa is the General Secretary of the National Truck Drivers Foundation. I can't not invite the Employers Association to come on the show and tell us whether what we're being told here is indeed what they are doing, because they are the ones that are putting the lives of workers at risk, including our government ministers. Who of you owns trucks?